Tonight, America strikes back. U.S. forces bomb targets linked to Iran. Retaliation for a deadly drone attack on U.S. troops.
We believe that the strikes were successful.
And the new fears of a wider war in the Middle East. A warning tonight about keeping your money safe.
There's cash advances on your credit card, large ones.
How fraudsters are banking on new tech and AI. Plus, mysterious balloon animals popping up all over town. The Vancouver Island veteran behind these airdrops.
I leave a trail of balloons.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. The United States and Britain launched new airstrikes tonight in the Middle East, this time hitting targets inside Yemen. This second round of attacks, supported by allies including Canada, against 36 Houthi sites. The latest operation pinpointing underground weapons facilities. It's meant to further disable Iran-backed fighters who have been firing on commercial ships in the Red Sea. This comes a day after the U.S. launched a campaign to strike back at groups that have been targeting Americans in the region. CTV's Jeremy Charon starts us off.
A flurry of airstrikes by U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. Retaliation for a drone attack that killed 3 U.S. soldiers. Today, prompting fierce reaction from adversaries. Iran's interior minister condemned the airstrikes and says Washington needs to act wisely.
This was a balance between striking back and sending a message to Iran and the militias to not attack, to satisfy the American people and the politics.
Iraq has warned of disastrous consequences and summoned the U.S. ambassador to Baghdad. It says 16 people were killed and at least 25 injured. Syria says the U.S. is fueling the conflict across the region in a very dangerous way.
I think that reason can prevail in this, but there's always the danger that some fanatical armed group decides to escalate, make a major attack against the United States, and then we're into a much larger conflict, one that both Iran and the United States want to avoid.
This, as in Yemen, clashes between U.S. forces and Houthi militants press on. The U.S. and U.K. struck at least 30 targets today. Meanwhile, in parts of Gaza City, Hamas has reportedly started resurfacing in areas where Israeli troops largely withdrew a month ago. The Iranian-backed militant group in Gaza has also condemned the U.S. attacks in Iraq and Syria. As Israeli strikes continue in the enclave and have killed more than 100 people in the last 24 hours, according to Palestinian health officials.
Now, this marks a significant increase in tension between the U.S. and Iran-backed groups in the region. And tonight, a senior Houthi official has warned they will meet escalation with escalation. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. Nearing the 2-year mark of Russia's full-scale invasion, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister met with some of those affected by the war in Ukraine.
We will celebrate the victory together, and I'm really happy to see a very strong woman. We need many strong women.
Melanie Joly made a surprise visit to launch a global effort to bring home Ukrainian children. It's believed thousands have been abducted by Russia. People who come to Canada in search of a better life may not be finding it here. New numbers show roughly 1 in 6 immigrants leave within 20 years of arriving here. It's raising the question, is Canada no longer a dream destination for newcomers? CTV's Kamal Karamali now on what's driving people away.
You are now Canadian citizens.
Every year, 300,000 to 400,000 newcomers arrive to Canada. New data now shows a growing population is also leaving. Statistics Canada says out of the immigrants admitted between 1982 and 2017, more than 5% left within the first 5 years of landing, and 17.5 were gone within 20 years of being admitted. Affordable housing, barriers in entering the labor force, and a high cost of living all playing a major role. Nigerian-born Chijoke Amada says many immigrants in PEI feel the pull to leave.
We talk about the
the things that could keep us here and the things that we see that are making us decide, you know what? I think we've had enough.
The immigrants most likely to leave, those with higher education and skilled labor workers.
We see a lot of immigrants moving to the USA, the UAE, for more pay.
The report highlights newcomers from some countries are more likely to head back because of a, quote, higher standard of living.
The life there might be on a different level of how would they integrate, and that relate back to, again, to the economic immigrants mostly that wouldn't be able to practice their professions here.
Raising questions on why Canada isn't doing more to make it easier for immigrants to re-qualify for the professions they had in their home nations, losing experienced workers to other countries.
Maybe their policies are a little bit more open than ours. They make it easier for people to re-qualify and practice than we do.
The report also highlights the negative impact losing skilled labor can have on a country's growth, citing how other countries are becoming more competitive, while Canada is doing the opposite, recently putting a cap on international students. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thanks. Consumer complaints about banking are at record levels, with fraud the biggest single issue, according to Canada's Ombudsman. It's a problem experts say is only getting worse because as technology and artificial intelligence get better, so do the criminals. CTV's Colton Prail reports.
An Ottawa couple is reeling after a scam phone call from who they thought was TD Bank cost them $13,000.
I didn't know that was coming from my credit card.
The scammers warned about fraudulent credit card purchases and confirmed personal information and even bank security questions to gain access to the account, then maxed out 2 credit cards, issuing more than a dozen cash advances.
They knew my name, obviously my phone number, my address, a bunch of different information that looked like it was within my banking details.
That information is now more available than ever.
And there's just so much of it that the price for each identity is as low as a few cents per record.
More than 41,000 Canadians were victims of fraud last year, costing them $554 million, according to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. This security expert says banks should have an increased responsibility to their customers, as advancements in artificial intelligence and deep-faking technology make fraud easier and more scalable than ever.
So they need to take a hard look and maybe reinvent some of their transactional procedures again.
TD Bank says they use numerous security controls to protect their clients and denied fault in this instance. Individuals are primarily responsible for avoiding falling victim to scams, and often the simplest protections work best.
Just hang up the phone and call your own bank back. There's no point of trusting anyone on the phone these days, honestly.
The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada will host a national conference later this spring, where new approaches to consumer protections are expected to be on the agenda. Heather.
Colton Prail in Ottawa tonight. Hundreds of Albertans took to the streets to show their support for the transgender community. Controversial new policies in that province have sparked much debate, with medical experts and patients weighing in on gender-affirming care. Here's CTV's Tim Brook.
A Saturday afternoon spent at City Hall. These Calgarians say that's all you need to know about their passion for this issue.
Yeah, we would all rather literally be anywhere else, but here we are.
Roughly 1,200 people gathered to protest new sweeping government policies aimed at transgender youth. They'll affect gender-affirming care, pronoun use, and even sports participation. Many here call the policies political posturing for the fringes of Danielle Smith's base.
I think it really speaks to the fact that the UCP obviously doesn't know what the majority of Albertans want.
So just how did we get here? Smith says she had some help in creating the new proposals.
I met with Lois Cardinal, who, as you may know, felt that she was rushed into bottom surgery and is having consequences of that.
Lois Cardinal has been mentioned by the Premier multiple times. She began transitioning at 19. 2 years later, she was approved for surgery and flown to Montreal. It didn't go according to her plan.
I had several complications with vaginoplasty and also a neurological condition. I was at my breaking point.
Now 35 and looking back, Cardinal tells CTV News the process went too quickly. She felt she needed more information and a pause to think, something Cardinal believes this new policy may offer.
Exactly what we are giving them, or the government is giving them, is time to explore their identity.
But those here will point to marked differences between Cardinal's story and the story of those who will be impacted by what the Premier has brought forward. First off, Cardinal was 21 when she transitioned, no longer a child who needed parental supervision. And second, the data suggests she's an outlier. Multiple North American studies show the overwhelming majority of those who transition stick with it.
What we're weighing is the regret, the risk of regret for these young individuals versus the risk of doing nothing and forcing them through a puberty that doesn't match their gender identity.
Those here tell us Cardinal's story is a sad one, but they believe basing a one-size-fits-all policy on it isn't good governance. Tim Brooke, CTV News, Calgary.
A massive winter storm hitting the East Coast has led to delays, cancellations, and travel troubles. Much of Nova Scotia is under a snowfall warning as the unusual weather system lingers over the region. CTV's Hafsa Arif has more.
A thick blanket of snow covers Nova Scotia, forcing Maritimers to grab their shovels for the second time in less than a week.
Well, I wasn't expecting this much.
And more snow in the forecast. Many Haligonians were out shoveling sidewalks and driveways, an uphill battle in the lengthy storm.
Oh, you just got to stay ahead of it.
An ongoing fight for municipal plows as well, leading to treacherous driving conditions. Some mishaps proved to be unavoidable. And cancellations and unexpected days off for many workers today. Halifax transit and ferry service shut down just past noon, and malls closed an hour later.
Residents are reminded not to park their vehicles where it will impede.
The city also issued its own alerts.
Snow clearing operations during the day and night.
Reminding residents about the parking ban in full effect.
Crews will continue to work around the clock until all of the snow has been cleared.
The city says more than 200 plows have been deployed, but despite those efforts, the sheer volume of snow is proving to be a challenge. Some even finding themselves stuck and needing help getting out.
He got a little slick on a hill and slid into a snowbank.
While some cars cautiously navigate slick roads, others opted to walk or other modes of transportation.
I figured it was a perfect opportunity to get the cross-country skis out and take a ski around the neighborhood.
A reminder of Nova Scotia's unpredictable weather, having a predictable impact on a February weekend. Hafsa Arif, CTV News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia is just one of many provinces where more people are now moving to as Canadians desire coastal communities to be near beaches, scenic views, and mild temperatures. A new report reveals that in 2021, more than 3.2 million people on the West Coast and 2.2 million on the East Coast lived within 10 kilometers of the shoreline. The population in coastal communities grew 5.3% over a 5-year stretch. There are growing concerns, though, over rising sea levels, shrinking the size and amount of land in coastal communities.
It is very much the first step of coastal climate change adaptation, so that we're not building houses in precarious places that, we don't want people's houses to be in the ocean.
500,000 Canadians live less than 5 meters above sea level. A warming planet is also increasing the risk of intense forest fires, like the ones raging in central Chile, where the death toll has risen to at least 50 as the country declares a state of emergency. The fires have ravaged more than 1,000 homes in densely populated areas, the worst of it in Valparaiso, about 2 hours from the capital, where it's been unusually hot and dry all week. Time for a short break. Up next, an Olympic doping scandal.
Clean sport and fair play should always win out.
Kept off the podium, Canada's figure skating fight. Canadian skaters made their mark on the world stage today in Shanghai, capturing a gold medal.
Start to the sequence.
Diana Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps triumph at the Four Continents Figure Skating Championships in the pairs competition. The win sets them up nicely to reach the podium in March at the Worlds in Montreal. A previous international competition in China is at the center of a doping debate, keeping Canadian skaters off the podium. 2 years after the Beijing Olympics, a Russian athlete has been disqualified, but fourth-place Canada didn't get bumped to bronze and may now look to appeal the decision. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver explains.
When 15-year-old Kamila Valieva took the ice at the Beijing Olympics, she had already tested positive for a banned substance, but that wasn't made public until after she skated and helped earn gold for Team Russia.
There's no way on earth, if you fail a drug test, should you be allowed to compete at the Olympics.
The positive test kickstarted 2 years of investigations that ended this week when Valieva was officially disqualified from the 2022 Olympics and given a 4-year suspension that ends just before the next Winter Olympic Games. The head of the advocacy group Global Athlete says it's troubling nobody in a position of authority was punished.
I think we're going to have a very sad future, because if this case is a precedent, why wouldn't more people start feeding athletes drugs to get glory for their country when there's no recourse to those bad actors?
Russia won the 2022 team event. The United States came second, Japan third, and Canada fourth. But this week, the International Skating Union removed the 20 points Valieva won, dropping Russia to third. But the ISU didn't redistribute the points to other athletes, as its own rules state, leaving Canada 1 point off the podium.
If you are part of any team event, think athletics, relay racing, swimming relays, team gymnastics. When one member of the team is disqualified, the whole team is disqualified. So this is unprecedented.
Megan Duhamel won gold in the 2018 Olympic team event, and her former partner, Eric Radford, came fourth in the 2022 team event behind Russia. Duhamel believes Canada deserves the bronze.
Canada absolutely deserves it because clean sport and fair play should always win out.
Skate Canada and the Canadian Olympic Committee are considering an appeal, saying they are disappointed and disagree with the way the International Skating Union redistributed the points in the team event. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
Powerhouse teams faced off in Toronto as the NHL's biggest names showcased their talent at the All-Star Game.
Now Keller dashes back with Matthews. Matthews scores! There's a one-time signature shot.
A fitting finish as Maple Leafs superstar Austin Matthews scored the winning goal in front of his home crowd to clinch the crown over Team McDavid in the final of the league's 3-on-3 All-Star Mini Tournament. The winning team will share the more than $1 million prize. Still ahead, the not-so-coveted cup.
Countless consumers have contacted us.
Traces of lead worrying faithful Stanley sippers. Stanley drink tumblers have boomed in popularity due in part to social media. Now the oversized cups are in the spotlight over concerns of exposure to lead. It's true, some brands use lead as part of the vacuum insulation covered by a stainless steel layer to protect users. CTV's Kristen Ashkate on what you need to know.
It has been a hot commodity across North America, with Stanley Valentine's Day cups flying off the shelves. Some even going to great lengths to cash in on the craze. A woman last month was arrested for stealing 6 Stanley cups.
Countless consumers have contacted us.
However, one parent in the U.S. says she has received dozens of reports that lead from the manufacturing of the cup can be exposed over time.
This is not an intermittent problem. The bottom cap regularly fails.
The self-proclaimed lead-safe mama from Oregon did dozens of tests on multiple Stanley cups and found traces of lead at the bottom of the cup.
And the issue is that they are using glue to hold on this little stainless steel disc over the lead, and the glue fails. And what I think is happening is the glue fails with moisture, most likely. People are washing in their dishwasher.
Not all experts are too concerned, but this University of Montreal professor says human exposure to lead should be avoided.
Lead is it's a very, very toxic metal, so you probably don't want to take chances.
Stanley did not respond to questions by CTV News, but in a statement posted on its website, the company said the sealing material includes some lead, and once sealed, it is inaccessible to consumers. Stanley went on to say, in the rare occurrence, the base cap of a product comes off due to ordinary use and exposes the seal.
If it was my cup, I wouldn't be using it once the lead was exposed.
Rubin plans to submit a report against Stanley on the use of lead in its 20-ounce children's tumbler and will continue to speak out against companies that use lead in its products. Krisa Nashkate, CTV News, Halifax.
After the break, a Vancouver Island mystery and the balloons that make people beam. We leave you tonight with a magical mystery on Vancouver Island. Balloon animals have appeared around one community every day for years. Tonight, Adam Sawatsky introduces us to the veteran helping others smile, one colorful creation at a time.
When she first spotted this bunch of balloon animals, Sajia Islam was surprised.
And I just thought, why this is here?
Perhaps they were a leftover from a birthday party, Lana McMillan wondered.
But as I kept coming, I kept seeing them.
Every time, a whole new batch of balloons.
Can I take one?
Well, Lorna Martin and countless others regularly take them.
I guess it's okay.
Who's been placing them at various locations around the community
I think Neoshim is a very kind person.
has been a mystery for most. Until now.
Some people drink, some people smoke. I leave a trail of balloons.
Kyle Mitchell says he started focusing on bending balloons after busting up his body during a parachute accident while serving in the Army's Airborne Division.
You go through life as a young man thinking you're invincible, and you finally realize maybe I'm not.
So Kyle switched to serving in the Air Force and Navy, and during deployments volunteered to make balloon animals for the locals.
When I was in the Persian Gulf, the Americans actually had a troupe of clowns on their ship that invited me to join them to go and entertain Kuwaiti orphans.
After retiring from the military after 30 years, Kyle does work as a professional clown, but he's still striving to serve the community.
You see people allowing themselves to have fun.
You see how a balloon makes Lorna beam? How Sajia can't wait to give these to her son and daughter?
And actually, I also love this.
You see how the unicorn hat that Lindsay found makes her son William wobble under the weight of its wonderfulness. And you see how Amy's joy
Happy.
is contagious for her caregiver.
Happy. Their smiles are what make my day the best.
And the reason why Kyle has been spending the past 5 years leaving behind dozens of balloon animals every day is no longer a mystery.
Happy.
I get to make them smile. And if you can do that, why not?
Happy.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Colwood.
A kind gesture. That's our show for this Saturday. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.